What if you were forced to marry a man who never showed his face? In the village of Umuike, beauty was Amara's crown, and pride was her throne. But one choice, one marriage, would test everything she believed. Who was the man behind the wooden mask? Why did her father choose him over princes and wealthy suitors? And when the truth was finally revealed, Amara's name would be remembered, not for her beauty, but for the painful lessons she learned too late. Hey beautiful people, welcome to Afrique Folktales, where African stories come alive with powerful lessons. Love stories that move you and make you think? Then hit subscribe and join the family. Don't miss a single tale. Now, let the story begin. Amara gritted her teeth as she stepped forward, her wedding attire trailing behind her like a prisoner's chain. The village of Umuike was alive with murmurs. The marketplace, usually filled with laughter and the scent of roasted yams, now carried whispers of shock and disbelief. Women gathered in small groups, their eyes wide with gossip, while men shook their heads in confusion. How could Amara's father do this to her? One woman whispered. She is the most beautiful maiden in Umuike, another added. Men traveled from distant lands to seek her hand. Why force her to marry him? Amara stood at the center of it all, her heart pounding angrily. She wore the finest wedding attire, a flowing white wrapper with gold embroidery, coral beads draped around her neck, and a golden anklet that jingled with every step. But despite her beauty, she felt like a prisoner being led to her doom. Her father, Obi, walked beside her, his expression unreadable. He had refused every wealthy suitor who came for her, claiming that the gods had spoken. He insisted that she marry Obioma, a man who had arrived in Umuik under a blood moon, bearing a wooden mask carved with ancient symbols. The elders whispered that the gods sent him, but none knew his true face. Some said the mask held a curse. Others claimed it hid a great secret. Amara only saw a beggar. Amara gritted her teeth, her voice low with fury. Father, why are you doing this? Do you hate me? Obi sighed but did not stop walking. My daughter, the gods have chosen your husband. You must trust in their wisdom. Amara clenched her fists. The gods would never choose a beggar for me. Her father turned to her with a hard gaze. A man is not measured by wealth or his face, Amara. He is measured by his heart. She scoffed. Then the gods have made a mistake. They arrived at the village square, where the wedding would take place. The villagers had gathered, eager to witness the most shocking union in Umuike's history. At the altar stood Obioma, a hunched figure, draped in simple brown robes. His skin was rough, like tree bark, and his face hidden behind a carved wooden mask with deep hollowed eyes and a wide, unsettling grin. The mask, carved from dark wood, gave him an eerie presence. His hands were strong but rough, like a man who had worked hard all his life. Amara felt a shiver crawl up her spine. How could she marry a man who refused to show his face? As the elders began to chant, binding her fate to Obioma, she leaned in close and whispered, I will never love you. Obioma did not react. Instead, he turned his masked face toward her and spoke, his voice as calm as the wind. We shall see. His words sent another shiver down her spine, but she ignored it. That night, Obioma led her to a small hut at the edge of the village. Unlike the grand houses she was used to, his home was made of mud walls and a thatched roof. The inside was simple: a sleeping mat, a wooden table, and a small cooking area. Amara's lips curled in disgust. You expect me to live here? Obioma did not answer, but as he placed a wooden bowl of steaming yam porridge before her, his rough fingers lingered, just for a breath, as if hoping she might change her mind. Then he withdrew, silent as a shadow. Eat. She smacked the bowl aside, sending the food splattering across the floor. I would rather starve than eat anything you prepare. Obioma said nothing. He only picked up a rag and cleaned the mess without complaint. Amara scoffed. You are pathetic. Days passed, and her hatred for him only grew. She refused to acknowledge him as her husband. When he brought her water, she poured it on the ground. When he tried to share his blanket on cold nights, she shoved it away. One evening, she walked through the village, her chin held high, pretending she was still the most desired woman in Umuike. At the stream, where women gathered to fetch water, she spotted Obioma mending a fishing net. An idea formed in her mind to humiliate him even more. She turned to the women and smirked. "Watch this." "Obioma!" she called, her voice loud and commanding. He looked up. "Come here and wash my feet," she ordered, stretching her legs. "They are dirty." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The women exchanged shocked glances, some covering their mouths in disbelief. A husband was a woman's pride. To humiliate him in public was unheard of. As Obioma rose and walked toward her, Amara noticed Kachi, the weaver's daughter, kneeling by the stream, filling a pot for an elder. The girl glanced at Obioma. She hurried to offer him water. "The sun is cruel today," Kachi said softly. "Drink, brother." Amara sneered. "Foolish girl. He's not worth your pity." Kachi met her gaze. "Kindness costs nothing, Amara." Obioma knelt before Amara, cupped water in his hands, and began to wash her feet. Laughter erupted. Amara threw her head back. "Behold, the great Obioma, a servant to his wife. Tell me, husband, will you lick my feet next?" The laughter grew louder. After washing her feet, he wiped them dry with the edge of his robe, then stood. For the first time, his voice held something different, something deeper. "A heart that mocks love will one day beg for it." Amara rolled her eyes. "More riddles? What will you do, Obioma? Curse me? Go ahead." But Obioma only turned and walked away, leaving the crowd murmuring. That night, Amara lay awake, the village laughter still ringing in her ears. She replayed Obioma's words. "A heart that mocks love will one day beg for it." A memory surfaced, her father's warning when she was a child. "Pride is a fire, Amara. It warms you first, then burns." She shook her head. Number. She was right to scorn him, wasn't she? The days passed slowly in Umuike. Amara remained trapped in the marriage she hated. But Obioma treated her with patience. No matter how much she insulted or mocked him, he never raised his voice, never fought back. But one morning, the village erupted with excitement. A royal messenger had arrived, riding a horse as black as night. He stopped at the village square, his golden robe shimmering under the sun. "People of Umuike," the messenger announced. His voice echoed across the marketplace. "Our great king Osita seeks a bride. The most beautiful maiden in the land shall be chosen as his queen." Gasps and whispers filled the air. Women straightened their clothes, adjusted their head wraps, and touched their faces, as if making sure they looked their best. Amara's heart leaped. The king is searching for a wife? This was her chance. Her escape. Her destiny. She had spent her whole life dreaming of wealth, power, and a husband worthy of her beauty. If she became queen, she would leave this miserable marriage behind and finally live the life she deserved. She had to act fast. That evening, she prepared herself. She bathed in scented oils, wore her finest wrapper, and adorned herself with shimmering beads. She stood before a small mirror, admiring her reflection. "Soon, I will be a queen," she whispered. Then she turned to Obioma, who sat quietly in the corner of their hut, sharpening a small knife. "You will not see me again after today," she said coldly. "I will be in the palace where I belong." Obioma looked up. His wooden mask revealed no emotion. "I see," he said simply. Amara scoffed. "You should be happy. No more having a wife who despises you." Obioma placed the knife down and stood. He walked to the door and held it open for her. "Go then," he said. Amara blinked. She had expected him to argue, to beg, to show some sign of pain, but he did not. For some reason, this made her uneasy. She pushed the feeling aside and walked out without looking back. The next day, the young women of Umuike gathered in the palace courtyard, dressed in their finest clothes. Some were nervous, some were excited. But Amara? She was confident. She stood tall, her head high, knowing she was the most beautiful woman in the village. The king had not yet arrived, but his royal guards stood in a line, watching over the crowd. The people murmured, wondering what the king looked like. "I heard he is strong like a lion," one girl whispered. "They say he is the most handsome man in all the lands," another added. Amara smirked. "Perfect." The drums sounded. The palace doors swung open. The king stepped forward. A tall, broad-shouldered man, dressed in fine red robes. His posture was regal and graceful, and his presence made the crowd fall silent. Amara's heart skipped a beat. He was handsome and noble, and bore a calm strength. His eyes scanned the crowd slowly. He raised a hand, and the royal messenger stepped forward. "The king shall choose his queen," the messenger announced. "Let the maidens come forth." One by one, the women approached, curtsying before the king. He walked past the line of maidens, stopping now and then to speak softly to one or two. Then he reached Amara. He paused. Their eyes met. She stepped forward gracefully, flashing a confident smile. She bowed low, making sure her golden anklet jingled as she moved. "Your Majesty," she said sweetly, "I am Amara of Umuike. Many say I am the most beautiful woman in this land." She lifted her head, expecting to see admiration in his eyes. But the king said nothing. He only looked at her for a moment longer. Then he slowly turned his head to the messenger and nodded. "The king has made his choice," the messenger announced. The crowd held its breath. "The woman who shall be queen is—" Amara smiled, already preparing herself to step forward. "Kachi, the weaver's daughter." A wave of disbelief swept through the crowd. Amara gasped, her hands trembling. "Kachi? That plain girl from the stream?" The villagers murmured again, some in shock, others nodding in quiet approval. The guards led Kachi forward, placing a royal sash over her shoulders. But Amara couldn't contain herself. She stormed forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "Your Majesty," she cried, "you have not heard me speak." The crowd gasped again. Amara's voice cracked as she stood before the king. "I am Amara, the most beautiful maiden in Umuike. You have not heard me. You have not seen." The king raised a hand gently, silencing her. He looked at his messenger and nodded. The messenger stepped away briefly, then returned, holding something in his hands. A wooden mask. Old, familiar. The king took the mask, held it up for all to see, then turned to Amara. "You speak of being seen," he said calmly, "but I have seen you. In my home, in my silence, in my humility." Amara's knees wobbled. Her mouth opened, but no words came. "I am Obioma," the king declared. "The man you called a beggar, the man you scorned and humiliated." A stunned silence fell. Gasps echoed like thunder. The ground felt like it was slipping from under Amara's feet. The man she thought was a poor beggar. He had been the king all along. King Osita, her husband Obioma. He stepped closer, and for the first time, she saw the scars beneath his royal robe's thin white lines across his wrists, where her thrown dishes had cut him. The shame pressed down on Amara like a heavy stone. "I gave you my kindness," King Osita continued, his voice low but firm. "I gave you my patience. I gave you every chance to see beyond what eyes can behold. But your heart chose mockery instead of mercy, pride instead of gratitude." "Long ago," the king said, his voice echoing like distant thunder, "the gods showed me a vision, a woman with a golden voice and a heart of stone. They said, 'Let her choose love or pride. So I came as Obioma you chose, as they foretold. I wore this mask not to hide my face, he said gently, but to reveal the hearts of others. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. She fell to her knees before him, trembling. Please, I did not know. I thought you were just a beggar? He finished for her, his gaze unwavering. Yes, you saw what you wanted to see, and now you reap what you have sown. Amara wept silently, her tears falling into the dust of the palace courtyard, her voice now a whisper. My king, my husband, please, I didn't know. He looked at her with the same calm he had always shown. A heart that mocks love will one day beg for it, he said again softly. Then he walked past her and joined Kachi, his chosen queen. With tenderness, King Osita placed the royal crown upon her head. A woman who loves with a pure heart deserves the king's love. He turned to the elders. Let the people bear witness today. Let them see that love cannot be bought with beauty, nor a queen chosen by pride. The villagers, who once adored Amara, now turned their faces away, murmuring in disappointment. Without a word, the king took Kachi's hand, and together they ascended the palace steps, leaving Amara crumpled and weeping before the crowd. As the seasons turned, Amara became a ghost in her village. The women who once envied her now whispered as she passed, their voices carrying fragments of her story. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Even the children learned from her downfall, their mother's warning, do not be like Amara, who could not see worth beyond gold. Her once golden anklet was now dull, her eyes always turned toward the palace on the hill. And when the wind carried the sound of the king's laughter, warm and rich, no longer masked, she would clutch her chest, as if trying to hold a heart that had long since shattered. One evening, as the first rains of the planting season kissed the earth, Amara found herself at the stream where she had once humiliated Obioma. The water flowed as it had that day, but the laughter was gone. Only the whispers of the wind remained. She knelt to drink, her reflection staring back, hollow cheeks where there had once been roses, dull eyes where fire had burned. A shadow fell across the water. Even the stream remembers your cruelty. Amara turned to see Kachi standing behind her, the royal sash still draped across her shoulders, but her expression held no gloating, only sorrow. You come to mock me too? Amara rasped. Kachi shook her head. I come to give you this. She held out a small wooden carving, a replica of Obioma's mask, but with the hollow eyes filled in with smooth clay. The king asked me to bring it, he said. Some masks are meant to be broken. Amara's fingers trembled as she took it. That night, by the light of a single oil lamp, she turned the carving over in her hands, and for the first time, noticed the words etched on the back. The gods test, but they also forgive. Walk gently, Amara. Outside, the wind carried the distant sound of drums from the palace. And for the first time in years, Amara did not weep. Instead, she placed the carving by her door and began to mend her own broken heart.